In the last video, we examined how security is managed for users in an organization, who are typically employees in a company who are subject to workplace policies. Another distinct user context is individuals or home users. Here, we can expect a much wider range of user behaviors and activities. This can indeed include an individual member of the public, but can be considered in many other ways. For example, there may be individuals who share a living space and devices, such as a family. Other people may have their own specific considerations, such as younger or older users. A home user may use a diverse range of technologies and digital services, governed by their own interests. This is in contrast to organizations where IT and IT security measures are provisioned and managed for all users in the environment. Where users in an organization will be expected to follow and comply with security policies, reaching home users with guidance is less direct. Many advice bodies will provide advice aimed at home users on topics such as how to spot a malicious email or fraudulent website. There may be tips on how to check if a retail listing is genuine, or if information in a social media post is real, for example. Advice bodies can be governments or regional police forces, or local entities such as schools or community groups. Digital services and technologies themselves may also provide advice as they are used, for instance when they are first configured or through notifications. Common advice targets the use of secure passwords and installation of software updates. Home users typically purchase or acquire their own technology, such as a computer or mobile phone. In turn, this means that they are the person best placed to look after the security of their device. Home users receive advice because they are assumed to be non-experts. Non-expert home users may try to follow advice or security cues on their device. They may also delegate security to someone they know who they believe is more knowledgeable about security. This can be in the form of informal technical support, then asking a trusted friend to set up security features on their device, or install software updates for them, etc. This then creates or anticipates costs for individuals connected to the user as well. There is a reliance on the home user to enact security for their own devices. One example of where this reliance is tested is operating system updates, specifically those which require a device restart. If we go back to the discussion of primary tasks and secondary tasks, if update notifications are ignored or action delayed, it can be because the user is in the middle of a primary task and does not want to lose their session context or delay their goal. It can also be that a user appreciates a security update but does not want an unpredictable feature update that goes with it. Home users are also subject to social engineering attacks, much like users in an organization. However, attacks upon home users may aim to trick the user into providing bank account details or money or access to accounts on social media or related to a video game, for instance. Such attacks exploit the user goal or primary task, but also user preferences, such as possibilities to win prizes or authority-based attacks which, e.g., pretend to represent a government service such as tax authorities. Increased security can interfere with a home user's goal. Here we will explore a few examples based on research by Cormac Hurley. The work uses an economics framing to demonstrate that the expectation of home users to be secure can be a bad fit, much like inappropriate security policies in an organization. Hurley frames security tasks in terms of costs, benefits, and externalities. We will first look at one example, which would be the expectation on users to examine URLs in an email to determine if the email is a malicious phishing email. Hurley argues that as attacks evolve, the situation has gone from giving users seemingly simple advice to look out for simple grammatical errors to increasingly complex advice for interrogating minor technical details in a URL. Advice also assumes that the user knows what to expect. So when genuine URLs are not what is expected, such as a legitimate retail website loading content or sending an email from a different top-level domain, the task and the ask of the user becomes more complicated. Hurley argues that there are potential benefits in following the advice, but they only go so far. Advice can help identify bad email, but not help to definitely identify a good email. Advice cannot rely on being exhaustive and is, as Hurley says, full of exceptions. Regarding actual benefits, that following the advice may take up more time than a user's wages can cover if followed routinely. In turn, if users are tricked into giving away banking information, for instance, the support costs for a bank itself for resetting user passwords may outweigh the losses of a phishing attack, and there is a chance that the bank will cover the losses of the user anyway. It is then argued that users act like rational decision makers when they reject advice that costs them time and does not get any easier to enact relative to the potential risk and cost of not following the advice. The advice giver externalizes the cost of following the advice to the user in terms of time taken to follow it, and for banks in terms of supporting users who follow it. This is all to say that if security advice is difficult to follow or takes too much time to follow, it not only represents a usability issue, but can also represent a mismatch with the very activity it is aimed to protect. This mismatch then creates the externalities for the user population as additional costs. Here we refer to another work by Cormac Earley which summarizes wider issues in the advice ecosystem around users, and the battle for user attention when there are other concerns beyond security. As Earley puts it, security decisions must be made with a carnival of distractions, especially when attention can be monetized and is one of the most valuable assets to businesses on the internet. There is no spare user attention, and crucially, it is difficult to reserve that attention for security when it is worth so much. Another issue is that the secure way to do things is not as clear as it is made to sound in advice. A pop-up warning may state that the website you're about to visit may be malicious and recommends to not visit the website. If this is the correct way to proceed, why offer any other course of action? A warning may happen because a website is misconfigured rather than non-secure. Looking at phishing emails, we ask users to be aware of risks and of suspicious emails for lack of having a clearer definition of what the user should look for. Where users do not follow advice, the user sees the costs as outweighing the benefits. While competition for user attention is fierce, asking users to do more for security when what they have to do is not clear does not provide benefits to match. Where users do not follow advice, it is because evidence is lacking for why security measures reduce the harm to an extent that the cost to the user is worth it. There is scope to do better in providing guidance for users. Earley's work describes how overwhelmed users will do the minimum of what is needed and none of what is optional. A lot of what is asked of users cannot be mandated because it is vague. The viewpoints of security advice givers and users can differ between advice focusing on the worst case possible outcome, where users focus on the average outcomes. Users may have assets such as accounts and devices, which are low value and do not warrant the concern and effort associated with high value assets, yet security advice treats all as being the same. To suggest that users should simply do more for security ignores the cost-benefit analysis the user has made for themselves in the face of what is offered to them.